How you doing? Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's always good to see you. Always good to see you. We're in the final week of our series. All things are possible. Everyone's been enjoying the series, I hope. And enjoying reading E Squared as well by Pam Grout, for those who have read it and done the experiments. I always like to review. We'll go back to week one. Week one was God ideas. Looking at this idea about the law of attraction and saying, well, if we're connected to everything, what are we actually attracting to ourselves? We're actually just recognizing that we're already connected to it. I'm thinking about the chicken in the refrigerator. If you're here for our refrigerator example. In week two, we talked about the spiritual kingdom. Recognizing that where we live and where our home actually is not in this world, in this physical five-sense world, but it's in the spiritual world, and that's where our power is, and that's where we must begin to live from. We talked about living from material sense versus living from spiritual sense. And once we recognize where we are, well, then we went into week three and we dealt with this idea that the universe respects you. Looking at the meaning of the word respect, meaning again, spect to see or to look. And so if we respect something, we're actually looking at it again. If the universe, if God respects us, God is always looking at us again. Never looking at us from our mistakes or our hurts or our pains or when we didn't make the right choice. The universe is always saying, you are as I've created you. I see you as perfect. Before you were formed in your mother's womb, in Jeremiah, I knew you. And we talked about the idea that then as we live from a place of self-respect, we recognize that we are always loved, surrounded by love, that we are infinite, and that we can do nothing wrong, that we cannot make a mistake in truth. So I thought about the book by Pam Grout, E Squared, 9 Experiments to Prove That Your Thoughts Create Reality. And through those 9 experiments, there are a number of things that we learned, and we've touched on them in the past 3 weeks. That through the experiments, we've learned that we can ask and request a response from God or from the universe within a specific time frame. That we can decide to see something and we will actually see it. That's the Volkswagen Jetta principle. If I decide, okay, for the next 48 hours I'm going to see beige cars, I can see them, right? That we've discovered that we're actually a field of energy, that our bodies actually radiate energy, and that's why we're interacting with all of the energy of the world and the galaxy. We learn that whatever you focus on with feeling will come into existence easily and effortlessly. We've learned that we have access to unlimited wisdom and guidance. We've learned that our thoughts impact matter. In that experiment, we're using planting beans and watching as we send more love to one plant, it will grow faster than the other one. And then we also learn that our thoughts and our words impact our food and impact our body, right? And so there's the experiment of seeing what happens just in the way that we treat our food and bless our food and speak about the things that we're putting into our body. That then has a conversation with ourselves, and we can actually lose weight. Interesting. If you haven't done that experiment, try it out. It's amazing. We learned that we're connected to everyone and everything. You can send a message to someone, thinking about someone, without ever talking to them, and watch that conversation happen, the communication happen. And finally, we learned that the universe is limitless, abundant, and extremely friendly. Now, last week in the God Talk, we heard some amazing testimonies and stories and the ways in which, using these experiments have been just beautiful and powerful. And I'm sure as you continue to use the book and continue to think about the book or use the experiments again, you'll have even more wonderful experiences. But the thing that's interesting to me, I think I talked about it in week 2, I said, we don't want to treat this like if you got a magic set when you were a kid and you look back and you remember, that magic set was so cool and I did all these great tricks. But now you're older and you're just like reminiscing about it, like, oh, that was a nice time in history. That's not what this is about, right? These experiments are proving something about life itself, that our thoughts create and impact reality. But it's easy to forget because this is what we do, right? Amazing things in everyone in this room, amazing things, what we would call miracles, have happened in your life, right? Yes. But do you remember that on a daily basis? Do you remember that when the new crisis shows up, right? And so it's easy to forget the miracles. Now, there's a quote I love from Ernest Holmes, and he uses similar language in several places, but he says that you have a silent partnership with the infinite. Rest in this divine assurance and divine security. This is more than a sentiment. And I love that. He's always inviting us to remember, like, we can hear these wonderful phrases and, oh, wow, my thoughts create reality, and I actually recognize that I'm in communication with God, and, I can write something down and I will get a response in my life, and that shows me that God is actually here and loves me. But it's more than just a sentiment. It's not just something nice or cute to talk about. And I thought about when we think about Jesus and the disciples, he was always frustrated with them. He would say things like, how long must I suffer with you? Oh, ye of little faith. They were walking with the man that was raising the dead. They were walking with the man that was literally telling the storm, stop, and it stopped. They were walking with the man that even, somebody could ask for him to heal someone, and they were in another town, and they would be healed. Like, they were experiencing all of that, and still they would forget. They had all these experiences of miracles, and then when the storm came, they were scared. Oh, Jesus, do you want us to die? Like, y'all are Jesus. It's just so interesting, but it mirrors exactly what we do with our lives, right? But when we think about it, miracles and answered prayers, I believe, and I know they're our birthright. Miracles and answered prayers. Just like this air that we're breathing is our birthright. And we don't have to wonder about it. It's what it is. And we breathe it in freely every day without hesitation or reservation. Miracles and answered prayers are the same way. And this is what Pam Grout's book is really inviting us to step into. That this is your daily experience. Now, we can live this way consciously or unconsciously, but you're always having a conscious or unconscious experience with the all that is, which is this thing that we call God, the Spirit. And when I began to think about it, I said, well, if we've talked about and learned about these God ideas, that there's a way to live with God ideas versus mind ideas, not just visualizing things based on information we already see, but there are ideas that can come from seemingly nowhere, from the spiritual kingdom, and can begin to transform our lives in different ways. If we understand that the spiritual kingdom is our home, that that's actually where cause happens, this place that we cannot see, taste, touch, or smell, but we interact with it. If that's our home, and then we understand that this thing respects us, yes, then I say it's time for us to say, I won't be satisfied. Yes. I won't be satisfied with the mediocre life. I won't be satisfied with things just as they've been. I won't be satisfied with the average, because I've had an experience now with miracles and answered prayers. I've had an experience now recognizing that I can interact with this thing, call it what you will, and it responds to me. Yes. And so now I'm not satisfied with just the regular things of life. And so I'm inviting you not to be satisfied with the trickles of life, because we recognize that God is unlimited. God is infinite. But it's we who put the limits on God. That's the only reason it's unlimited. It's interesting. If you think about, if you go to your kitchen sink, do you ever worry that water is going to come out of it? You walk to the kitchen sink, you turn the knob or pull the handle, and however much water you want to come out of it, so it is, right? But it's always there. And the water the water will freely flow. It doesn't have any judgment around, oh, well, you know what, she didn't, say I love you yesterday, so I'm not really going to flow like I usually do. The water doesn't do that. It freely flows. This is the truth of our life, but we block it. If you don't get up and go to the kitchen, if you don't get up and go to the faucet, the water is not going to flow. Or if you just turn the knob a little bit, and you're like, oh, well, I can sit here and hold my glass, and, eventually, and get the drips, right? You can do that, right? You can live life that way. That's the mediocre life. But the I won't be satisfied life is saying, I'm going to turn this knob till it breaks off if I need to, and I'm going to fill my glass up. And not only that, I can continue to fill my glass up over and over and over again. But we have to be willing to do that. And what I thought about, when we think about this idea of not being satisfied and how we are satisfied with a mediocre life, I thought about what many of us do oftentimes when we're sick. Now, I don't know about you, maybe nobody in the room, but what I've seen is that many times, many of us, we don't actually stop or take care of ourselves until we get sick, right? We don't actually just take a time, a day out, off for ourselves or love ourselves. We wait till something hits us so hard, a flu or some unnamed virus that nobody knows what it is. But you can't get out of bed. You just, boom, you're slammed, right? And then that's the moment when you finally have to ask for help. Like, you really need somebody. Because that's the only time you feel justified in asking for help. I don't know if there's anybody in the room. I'm just talking about other people I've seen out there in the world. And so what's interesting to me about that is, we get to that point, right? Finally, we're laid out and we're sick. But then what happens is, we might be in bed a day, maybe 2 days, however long it takes. The moment we start feeling a little better, we get up, we start trying to do stuff. We'll get our computers and start reading emails, call people, because we feel bad. Oh, we've been away from life for so long, and people are probably thinking that we're lazy and good for nothing, so let me get back on the grind. But we know we're not 100% well, and you know it, even as you're trying to do all of those things, right? You know you're not 100% well, but you keep pushing forward. As if you're healed. As if you're healed, and you never stay in the bed and allow yourself to heal and get better. And what I began to see is, I said, that's what this life of, being satisfied with life is. We get satisfied with just a little better. Well, I can walk now. I can actually get up out of the bed, so I'm better. Right? You're not healed. The process hasn't completed. But we get excited and we live based on these trickles. And what I'm inviting us to think about, to take the time and say, I won't be satisfied until my complete healing comes forward. I won't be satisfied until my complete prosperity, my complete abundance comes forward. Now, yes, just a little better, that's a sign that it's working. So let the process continue. That's not the sign to now, let me do something. Again, and what's that conversation? What's happening? Again, we're projecting what we think other people are thinking about us. We're projecting that we think, I'm not doing my part, and all of those things, right? Which is, I'm trying to find nice words. It's just not the truth. I just say that, it's not the truth, right? And so we're being invited to stand in that healing and move beyond just a little better. And what that requires, I love in A Course in Miracles, it uses this word a lot. It requires our vigilance. Many times, the posture of being a warrior or a soldier, it can be used in a negative context, but I think in this context, this is where it's necessary. When is the last time you've been a warrior for your health, for your self-care, for the goodness of your life? When have you been, a fighter for the goodness of yourself? Because we know how to fight for other people and other things and, some other employer and all of those things. Somehow we can be a good soldier for all of them. We can fight and be a warrior for all of them. We can be vigilant for all of those things. But when it comes to yourself, your life, your self-care, your health, your prosperity, your abundance, the goodness of your life, your wholeness, your peace of mind, you don't find the ways to be the soldier, to be vigilant over that thing. And I'm inviting you now to be vigilant for your wholeness.
Yes.
To be vigilant for your good. Whatever that looks like for you, to be vigilant again for your peace of mind.
Yes.
Lord, if we all just had peace of mind. But it requires us to be vigilant. It requires us to say, I won't be satisfied. No, not anymore. Yeah, I had little trickles of goodness in my life and it was cute. No more. Yes, I had trickles of abundance and prosperity in my life. No more. Yes, I had trickles of comfort and relaxation and just taking time for me. I'm not satisfied with the trickles anymore. I'm not satisfied with just a little better because, again, I recognize where I live. I recognize that my kingdom is not of this world. I recognize that I'm created in the image and likeness of God, that I am as God created me. God is always seeing me as powerful, as creative, as brilliant, as amazing, as the light of the world, as light clothed in form. God is always reminding me, before you were formed in your mother's womb, I knew you. You're infinite. You existed before you existed here.
Yes.
And if I recognize that, then I must be vigilant over the beauty, the greatness, the power that I am. I'm remembering, and I've shared this story before, the story of the dog sitting on the nail whimpering. And it was a story my grandfather told me many years ago, and the friend comes and he hears the dog whimpering. He's like, "What's wrong with your dog?" And he's like, "Oh, he's sitting on a nail." And he's like, "Well, why does he get out of it?" And he said, "Well, he will once it hurts bad enough." Right? And I thought about that story again because I don't want you to just get off the nail. I want you to change your address. Yeah. Like, that's what I want you to do. It's just time. I won't be satisfied. I'm not going to even stay in the same realm of that pain, in the same realm of that nail. Whatever that nail is for you in your life, change your address. Go somewhere else and don't ever think about that place again. Yes. And as I began to think about this idea of not being satisfied, it took me to a book that I absolutely love. It's one of my favorites. I read it, oh my God, sometimes I think almost once a month, but somewhere along the line it kind of pops back up. And it's The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. And if you're not familiar with this story, The Alchemist is the story of this boy who's a shepherd who, he's interesting because he defied his family's idea of what he should do. His family thought that he should be a priest. And that was actually a good thing for his family because in that time, a priest is someone who's educated, who can read and write, and that was an elevation from what his family was. But he said, no, I want to travel the world, or travel the world as he knew it. And, being a shepherd will allow me to do that. I get to see different towns and, make my own way. And in that time of being a shepherd, he has a dream. He has a dream about this treasure at the pyramids in Egypt. Now, he had never seen the pyramids. He didn't even know if they were real, but he had heard about pyramids, and then he has it in this dream. And the dream was so powerful that something said, I got to go find this treasure. And so he goes on this grand, glorious adventure. And like all of our adventures in life, we have a dream, we have a purpose, and things don't necessarily go the way we think they should go. He started his adventure and actually he was swindled, he lost all his money. He was away from home, he had sold all his sheep. He was like, what am I going to do? He sat there crying, and eventually he finds a crystal merchant who hires him. And he continues to go on this journey, always sort of forgetting about his dream of the treasure, remembering, and then going forward again. And so in this place of the story, we find him, he's been through many adventures. He's actually found the love of his life, Fatima, which is a beautiful part of the story. And he has to leave her because he needs to go. He's so close to Egypt. He needs to go. He needs to see these pyramids and what it's all about. And so he's having a conversation with the alchemist as they're traveling through the desert. And the alchemist says something to him. He says, listen to your heart. It knows all things because it came from the soul of the world and will one day return there. And I'm sort of taking snapshots of the conversson. So the boy Santiago asks him, he says, well, then why should I listen to my heart? And he says, the alchemist says, because you will never again be able to keep it quiet. Even if you pretend not to have heard what it tells you, it will always be there inside you, repeating to you what you're thinking about life and about the world. And that's what's interesting to me. Again, this is that I won't be satisfied moment. Because once you've had an encounter, once you've had an experience, even if it's small, even if it's something like, oh, if I decide for the next 48 hours to look for light beige cars, and you see continually light beige cars for 48 hours, that's telling you something about what's possible in the realm of mind, in the realm of thinking. Because if I can think or create light beige cars over and over and over again with my mind, well, what if I began to use that same power to think about this business that I want to create? What if I begin to use that same power of thought to think about the way in which I want my relationship to shift? What if I use that same thought or that same power to think about how I want my career to expand in some way? It's the same thing. Use cars or use the things that you want in your life. But when you begin to have those experiences, if you ignore that, if you don't listen to your heart, what I love the alchemist says, because you will never again be able to keep it quiet. You won't be satisfied. And so Santiago goes on in this conversation. He says, my heart is afraid that I will have to suffer, the boy told the alchemist one night as they looked up at the moonless sky. And the alchemist says, tell your heart that the fear of suffering is worse than the suffering itself. And that no heart has ever suffered when it goes in search of its dreams, because every second of the search is a second's encounter with God and with eternity. And this is why I can encourage you to begin to live your life from a place of saying, I won't be satisfied. Because as you pursue whatever your personal legend, whatever your dream, whatever your purpose, whatever your deep, heartfelt desires are for your life, your peace of mind, your wholeness, your prosperity, your abundance, your business, whatever it may be, you're actually interacting, you're having an encounter with God and with eternity at every second of the journey. And again, that's what Pam Brown is inviting us to really see with these 9 experiments. They're a lot of fun, and the way she writes is beautiful because it's engaging and very conversational, very informal. But if we take that aside, there's some very real, deep things that are happening. This field of infinite possibilities. This realm where all things are possible. This realm, as I said, Michael Beckwith calls the realm of everlasting good, the kingdom of God, the spiritual kingdom. You're interacting with it at every second of your journey. And so the last part of this conversation, the alchemist says something to Santiago. He says that, Santiago now begins to listen to his heart. And he asks his heart for some wisdom. And his heart speaks back to him. This is that conversation that we have within ourselves with God. I talked about being on the subway and having all these thoughts and feelings. And my heart began to speak back to me in the form of a song. It was God speaking back to me. And so in this moment, Santiago hears his heart. And his heart says, everyone on earth has a treasure that awaits him. We, people's hearts, seldom say much about those treasures because people no longer want to go in search of them. We speak of them only to children. Later, we simply let life proceed in its own direction toward its own fate. But unfortunately, very few follow the path laid out for them, the path to their personal legends and to happiness. Most people see the world as a threatening place, and because they do, the world turns out indeed to be a threatening place. What we believe to be true about the world will always be true about the world. And what I know to be true, as we have gone through this series, as we know that all things are possible, as we recognize that we can tap into God ideas, these ideas that have brought things forward in our life and in our world that simply didn't exist before. I talked about the Wright brothers. We can look at flying to the moon. We could even look at just music, the way a certain musician or artist will bring forth a sound that then defines a generation and an era, and music is never the same after that. These are the God ideas that seem to come out of nowhere, but we all have access to it. We are all connected to that thing that we call God, that thing that we call the all in all, that thing that we call the universe. We're connected to it. Genius! Yes. You're connected to it. And so whatever you choose to do in your life, whatever your purpose or dream or legend, personal legend is, you have access to genius to pursue that, to fulfill that, to the highest degree, whatever it may be. But if you believe that the world is a threatening place, so it shall be. I'm here to tell you the universe respects you. So there are no threats. The universe loves you unconditionally. There are no threats. The universe only wants to help you. There are no threats. You can ask for guidance and it will give it to you. But only when we open. I love to think about the what and the how. We're the what. God is the how. I find myself many times, I was thinking about it this week, sometimes I get frustrated if someone asks me to do something and also tells me how to do it. You asked me to do this, right? And I asked myself, I said, well, why am I getting frustrated about it? And I had to think about, well, how many times have I done that when I asked God for something, when I spoke a word, and I had this vision in my life, but then I wanted to micromanage and control how it was going to come forward. God is the how. We're the what. I mean, we're so powerful and creative. We can speak. Again, this is the idea that we're in the likeness and image of God. And so when God spoke, let there be light, there was. We can speak, let there be 1 million people in CSC, and so there shall be. But at the moment that we speak that, then we open ourselves up to as receptacles and say, okay, God, give us the idea. Okay, God, give me the plan. Okay, God, show me what the next step is. Okay, God, lead me. But I could say, I want 1 million people in CSC and then do all the things that I think I know how to do to make that happen. And I'm interested again in a God idea. I'm interested in the miraculous taking place in my life. I'm interested in the miracles and answered prayers being the daily experience of my life, just like breathing this air is the daily experience of my life. That's what we're interested in. And so I invite you in this moment to just look at somebody and say, I won't be satisfied. No more, no more. I know what's possible. I know that all things are possible. I know that infinite things are possible. I'm not going to be satisfied with the littleness of life, with the smallness of life. No more. And on that we're going to stand, we're going to stand, we're going to stand. I won't be satisfied. It is time for us to become warriors for ourselves, to become soldiers, to become vigilant for our dreams, for our purpose, for our personal legends, for our self-care, for our health, for our healing, for our peace of mind. That keeps coming back to me, our peace of mind. What would happen if you decided to be vigilant for your peace of mind? Yes. Without judgment, whatever it looks like, if you declare that I'm going to be vigilant for my peace of mind, and what comes to you is, you know what, I need to take a sabbatical from this thing. I need to, you know what, I need to take a vacation next week. Yes, my boss may be upset, but if I have the time, I'm taking it. What would it look like to be vigilant about your self-care? Yes, I have this thing that I used to love to do and I haven't done it in years and I keep putting it back because I don't have the time. What if you just decide to make the time and just clear away the schedule and you decide to be vigilant for yourself, for the things that you love, for the things that matter to you, for the things that give you life and give you joy? Because do you understand that when you're in joy, that when you have life, when you're smiling, then you can be that and bring that to everybody else in your world? All the people that you're concerned about, they think that you're being selfish. If you're in joy, then we're all in joy. The people that are in your care, the people that you are here to take care of. We need you to be in joy. We need you to be in light. We need you to be happy. Whatever it is that required for your happiness, let it be. Without hesitation or without reservation. Mother, Father, God, we are so grateful for the journey that you have taken us on this month, recognizing that all things are possible. Recognizing that we live in a realm of possibility where there are God ideas, where that thing can come seemingly out of nowhere that simply transforms life itself, that transforms a generation, that creates a new normal for our life. We are grateful to recognize and remember that our kingdom is not of this world, that we actually reside in a spiritual kingdom. Recognizing, as the scripture says, before we were formed in our mother's womb, you knew us. Recognizing and meaning that we existed before we existed in this form, and we shall continue to exist when we leave this form. Recognizing that we are unlimited. Recognizing that you always see us from the eyes of love. Recognizing that you always see us from the eyes of peace, from the eyes of having done nothing wrong. We choose to see ourselves that way. And as we choose to see ourselves that way, we find that deep within our souls there's a stirring that says, I won't be satisfied. The trickles of life just don't work anymore. I won't be satisfied. The mediocre way of living, it just won't work anymore. I won't be satisfied. The average way of living, the things that I used to accept, it just won't work anymore. I won't be satisfied with the just a little better. I won't be satisfied with pretending that I'm healed. I won't be satisfied with 25% of healing. I won't be satisfied with 50% of healing. I will not be satisfied with 90% of healing. I am concerned with and looking for my complete and total healing. I am concerned with and looking for and expecting my complete transformation. I am concerned with and expecting my complete peace of mind. I am expecting my complete happiness. My God, I am so grateful for the beautiful souls that are here in this room that are listening to this message within the sound of my voice, because I know that these are those who have decided to be vigilant about their lives, about their dreams, about the purposes, about the visions, about the ideas that you have placed deep within them. I am grateful for their courage to listen to their hearts. Yes, there are many in the world that have chosen not to listen to their hearts. There are many in the world that are afraid to listen to their hearts. But I speak to the courage of those that are here in the room and I call it to rise up now. I speak to the truth that is always speaking to us. I call it to rise up and speak even a little louder. And I'm grateful for the ways in which we will see everyone living on purpose, in purpose, for a grand purpose, to be the light of the world, to bring happiness and joy and smiles to the world. And that can only happen if we allow ourselves to step into that. For that willingness, for that courage, I am simply grateful. As we recognize that we are the what, I now release these words to you, the how. Just as we would plant seeds into a garden and allow the soil and the sun and the rain to nourish that seed to come forward, we now allow you to do the work of bringing these seeds, these words that we have spoken into you, bringing it into form easily and effortlessly, without delay. Together we lift up our voices and we say amen. Amen.